Looks like we are ready to go, ready to start. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today on Solibri CheckPoint. If you do have any issues hearing us or seeing the presentation, please drop a note in the chat and just let us know. Ward, next slide. So my name is Jason Reichel. I'm Solibri's country manager and director of sales here in the US, and I'm joined by my colleague Ward Turkyeh, who's a BIM consultant and customer success manager here at Solibri. This is intentionally a short webinar. We're just doing 30 minutes, so I'm going to share just a couple of slides, and then I'm going to hand it off to Ward to walk us through the product. Next slide. We are really excited about this new product of ours. We believe it's going to have a really great appeal here in the US. Solibri CheckPoint is the result of an acquisition that we made last year. So while it is a new product offering for us, the underlying technology has been developed and tested for several years. Next slide, Ward. Solibri CheckPoint was actually just released to market a few weeks ago. So the purpose of the webinar today is to really provide kind of that first look at what the product does, how it works, show you the look and feel of the product. So we're going to focus on a few things as Ward walks through the demo today. Simplified rule check. So there are just a few rules to consider, which makes it easier and faster to check your model. We support Revit and IFC files, even in the same project. So we bring direct Revit support now. Some key integrations that we're going to highlight is with Autodesk, both Construction Cloud and BIM 360, as well as Procore. So we think it really becomes easier to plug into the majority of workflows here in the US. And also really pay attention to the workflow and the interface. We tried to keep it clean, simple, intuitive, so model checking can really be put into the hands of many rather than just a few power users to really help drive quality and better project outcomes. Next slide, Ward. And before I hand it off to Ward to walk through the demo, we are extending a free trial for anyone who registered for this webinar. So this is the last chance to get your hands on it. If you like what you see today, you want to test it for yourself, run some of your own models through it, shoot an email to us at this email address, and I will get in touch with you over the next day or so, and we'll get that trial set up for you. So with that, Ward, I'm going to hand it over to you, and let's jump into the demo.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jason, for this. Let me take it from here. Okay, so I would like to welcome you all, everyone, to this webinar. Before I dive into the demo, let me show you a couple of slides just to give you a quick overview on the features that we have on Solibri CheckPoint. So first of all, CheckPoint is a browser-based technology. And being in the browser allows us to navigate freely through our 3D models. We can create different model sets and create also federated models over there. There are some 3D viewing functionalities, which is quite enhanced because we're working in the cloud. So we can create section box, show grids, and also navigate through the spaces. And also, since we're a model checker, our validation rules extend to much more than just clash detection. We can do actually data validation. We can do clearance checks over there. And of course, where the issue arises, we can report them and collaborate in different ways. We can export the results in different file formats, so in Excel or CSV. We can create PCF files for users who are looking for more open workflows. And also we can track issues using the integrations that we have. Or you can just keep all the issues in one environment on Solibri CheckPoint, and then you can collaborate with your team members to fix them accordingly. And since we know that the BIM information is not only the graphical information, the data needs to be consistent in our BIM models. And that's why we have a dedicated data viewer, which allows us to create customizable data sets. Also, it helps us in our quantity takeoff workflows, and we can group all the elements over there. And I will show you that as we progress through the demo. Okay, and also about CheckPoint. The instant and generic rule checks over there makes it easier for our users to create hundreds of checks. And you will see the difference, especially for users who have been using also Solibri Office. It's also important to know that CheckPoint is not a replacement for Solibri Office. It's actually there to enhance the workflow. So with the generic rule checks that we have over there, you can create hundreds of rule checks to validate your models. And also you can create multiple model sets because there's no, I would say, cloud limitation or cloud space limitation for the number of models or federated models that you can have over there. Also, we're working with both native Revit and IFC. So we're not limited to either one of these. And since that checkpoint is fully integrated with other CDEs, just like ACC and Procore, as Jason mentioned earlier, there's live synchronization between these platforms, which enhances overall collaboration. And the most important thing is that there's no plugin or a desktop application required to be installed locally or to be added to Checkpoint in order to check your models. So that was like a quick overview on Checkpoint. If you have any comments, any questions, feel free to drop them in the questions section. So from now, I'll just stop sharing this screen. Okay. And I will share Checkpoint. There you go. Okay, I hope that everyone can see my screen. Let me go over here. So as you can see, Checkpoint runs fully in the browser. We don't need to install anything on our local drives. We go straight to checkpoint.solibri.com, in which we have the login screen. We can log in from here. And then we will be directed to the home page of Checkpoint. Of course, you can use any browser out there. I'm just using Microsoft Edge at the moment. You can use Google Chrome. It's compatible with all the browsers. So you can see my projects over here. You can see this one is imported from ACC. This one was imported from Procore. And this is a Solibri CheckPoint project, which means that the elements or the models that exist in this project were imported directly from my local drive. And of course, we can establish the integration from here. So this is how we can add a new project. So I can just give it a second to load again. So we can add a new project from here. This is one, which allows me to upload the models directly to Checkpoint, or I can just connect to ACC or Procore, and then I can view the files from there. So here we have like one stop, like a poll question, just to have more insights on the integrations which we should have. So which integrations are you mostly interested in? And my colleague will drop the questions for you over here. So again, which questions or which integrations are you mostly interested in? Okay, I see different people are reacting over there. Okay, perfect. So as we can see, most of the people have chosen ACC. There were also some of you who have chosen Trimble Connect, Procore. So the current integrations that we have, as you can see in my screen, are Autodesk, which are both BIM 360 and ACC, and of course Procore. More integrations will be added later on this year, just like Trimble Connect. There are different also integrations which are gonna be added later on. Okay, so from now I can go to my Solibri CheckPoint project. It's a hospital and it's an example project which I'm going to use. So I'm going to load some Revit files over here. Let me just add them from here. So I'll add a Revit model set. Okay, so as soon as it loads, let me just give you more insights on the 3D viewer of Checkpoint. Now, being in the browser allows me to navigate freely through the files without the need to export it into another file format or a format that is compatible with the browser. So what happens in the back end is that Checkpoint gets the original file, converts it through one of our conversion methods into a viewable file into our browser. this file is compacted, which means that it is much smaller than the original file, and this makes it more, or let's say easier to handle in the 3D viewer. Okay, so I see that these 6 files. So I'm loading 7 different models to create one federated model. As you can see, different disciplines for these. Perfect, so it has loaded. I'll just make an update over here. So I think this one is an outdated. Let me just load a different one. So I'm gonna remove this one. And then we're gonna go to the model sets and then add the latest over here. Okay, so what I did is that I've added like a new version of one of the files, the fire alarm over here. So as soon as we get our files ready in the 3D viewer, let's take a look on the process, on the model checking process on CheckPoint. So in the top left corner, you can see the 5 main icons, which represent the 5 main processes of CheckPoint. So over here, we thought that the model checking process needs to be easier, and that's why any CheckPoint user needs to go through this structured approach. So the first one is models, where, as you've seen, I navigated through the files and then I added them to the 3D viewer. And then we have the data viewer, which allows me to show the data of my models in a more structured way. And then we have filters, which allows me to create classifications or filter out elements. You can consider it as a gadget to select the elements according to specific properties. And then the fourth one, which is rules. And here we have the the 3 main validation checks that we have, and the last process, which is issues, where we can create issues, sync them with an issue tracking system that we're connected to, or we can just keep them on CheckPoint. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to the elements over here, just to show you some of the elements. I think it's taking some time to load. There you go, because this is a relatively large model, but you can see we're handling it because it's a native Revit, and also we're handling it in a faster way than other tools, because other tools needs this file to be exported into different file formats in order to be faster in the 3D viewer. Okay, so the element properties over here, we can use them, and then we can go to the second step, which is the data viewer. And over here, let it load. The data viewer allows me to view all the elements that I have in the 3D viewer, but according to specific attributes, which are being read from the element properties. So here I have 80,663 elements, and I can view the model name, level, IFC entity. You can see some elements which are empty, and that's because this is an IFC data view, and I have some Revit files. So I can go to the default data views. So all CheckPoint users will have their own default data views for Revit and also IFC. They can use them, and also they can create their own data views, and they can save them in this section over here. So I'm loading the Revit default data view, which shows the Revit ID, as you can see, the category and the name. We have some empty elements, the IFC GUID, and also some discrepancies over here in the level, but that's good, we can keep it. And that's the beauty about CheckPoint, is that we don't scrape out any data. The null values will also be retrieved into CheckPoint. And why is that? Because we would like to validate the model. We would like to see these inconsistencies. We want to point them out and show them to our team. Okay, so this is the data viewer. Next we have filters. So in the filters, you can see I've already created some example ones. If I want to filter out doors, for instance, I can run it. And then we will retrieve only the doors. And the filters can be basic filters, can be very detailed filters. It depends on your own requirements. And how do we create them? Let me show you real quick. So over here, you can see that we're looking through the category property and specifically for doors. That's it. But of course, if you want to make it complex, you can add more attributes, more properties to select the elements, and then you can use different operators for that. Okay, so that's for filters. the next one would be rules. And this is where the three main generic rules comes in. So I've already created ones, but before that, let me just add a new one from here. This is a new rule and show you how it looks like. So in the rule type, you can see we have three main checks: class check, property check, and free space check. You can customize them based on the requirements for every rule over here, and then you can create your own checks accordingly. So if you want to do a class check between like specific disciplines, then you need to add base target, colliding target. If you go with a property check, you will have different requirements to add the property and also to select the elements that you want to work with. As for the free space check, you will have extra options, just like the dimensions for the box that we're creating for the elements that you want to validate the clearance for. Okay, so that was the new one. Let me delete it. And then from here, I've already created some example ones. So the first one is a class check between fire protection, the firefighting model, and also the structural model. Let me run it. You can see it's straightforward and simple. All what you have to do is just specify your requirements in an easy way. And that's why we have filters before rules, as you can see from the workflow at the top. This means that you need to first to specify your filters, and then we go to rules and validate our models. There you go. So these are the results. We can view them also in the data viewer. I can just double click over here and I can get them instantly like this. Let me view the other clashes. There you go. You can see, for instance, I think, yes, so it's the same column over here. Yes, it's the same column. So you can see two different clashes in two different locations. Now we can group all these clashes together to make it easier for us to communicate this with our team. So we can create a group for this by the ID of the column. And then there you go. I can isolate them all just to see. There you go. I have the two different clashes in one, as you can see from here. This is for the class check. And of course, I can report this issue by creating a new issue from the data viewer. Okay, that's for the class check. The second one would be, let me show you the property check. So over here, we're going to validate the door if all the doors have the uniformat number. Okay, that's basically not empty. Let's see how this rule was set up. So you can see that we're looking for doors specifically, and then we're looking for the uniform format number, and just simply if it's not empty, that's it. So I can save, and then I can run it from here. So now CheckPoint will go through all the doors and start looking for the properties, the uniformat properties, and check if it's empty or not. If it's empty, it should be retrieved in red. If not, it will be in green. There you go. Okay, so here you can see these ones are actually empty. And also in the data viewer, you can view that the classification uniformat number has these values for the past elements. But if I group them real quick to the result, and then from the failed elements, you can see it's actually empty. And this is how we can validate it. You can use any operator over there. So if I go again over here and then show you the list of operators that we support, equals if you have like a specific value that you would like to validate, or you can use the any-of operator if you have a list or a long list of values that you would like to comply with and check if it's added to this property over here or not. And of course, if you type anything, let's say equals, and then you need to add a specific value, here we have some wildcards that you can use and make it easier for you. Okay, so that's for the property check. And the last check that I want to show you is the free space or the clearance check. And over here, I'm using a very interesting use case, which is if the fire alarm panels have, a space next to them, and there are no obstacles for the fire alarm panels. So I'm going to run it. And let's see if there are any obstacles, of course, should be retrieved in red. If not, they will be retrieved in green. But let me like in the questions section. If you have any questions regarding this, just drop it in the questions section. Okay, I see everything is in green. So let's remove the context. There you go. So you can see the box that we've created. Now this box was not added on the original files. This is very important. So if I go to the free space check again and see how this rule was set up, you can see that we targeted the fire alarm control panels, and then we disallowed all the other elements. So if there is any element over here, should be retrieved as a clash. And of course, the dimensions for this box needs to be specified along with the alignment, of course. Okay, so where did we have the issues before? We had them in the clash check. So I'm gonna run it. I think this is the time for our second poll question. My colleague will drop it in the, over here. So which type of checks do you need the most in your workflow? Which type of checks do you need or you think is valuable for you in your workflow? Is it the clash check, property check, or free space check? Do you do data validation, clearance checks, or intersection checks? Okay, so we've seen that most of the users, yes, so they've requested clash intersection checks. This is quite interesting. I see also there are some people who do data validation checks, which is quite important. Now we see that there's like an increase in the demand on data validation checks, but I see that most of you have chosen the clash intersection checks. Okay. So of course, more checks will be added later on to this, just like duplicate checks. Okay, so now we have issues over here. How do we communicate this with our team? How do we create an issue for this? So we can just simply create it from the data viewer from here. So we can just select the issue and then create an issue from here. Or I can just simply go to the last step in the workflow. You can see on the fifth icon. So I can add a new issue from here. I can take a screenshot. If I want to make it more specific, I can select, the elements that are required only for this. I can take a couple of screenshots and then I can call it test. You can give it a description also, priority. So you can add all the other entries which are required to fix this issue. A due date, topic type, status, stage, and also to whom this issue was assigned also. So you can assign it to one of your team members and then you can just simply save it. Now, if you save it internally on CheckPoint, you'll be able to export it in BCF, the BIM collaboration format file. This is one. Or you can just connect to another issue provider. So if I go to connect issue provider, you can see the list of integrations that we have at the moment. So we're connected to ACC issues, BIM 360 issues, and also coordination issues from Procore. More integrations will be added later on this year, and more features as well are going to be added. Okay, so that was like a quick overview on CheckPoint. If you have any questions, just drop it in the questions section. I will now stop sharing my screen. Okay, and then let's get back to the slides.
Thank you, Ward. So I think we're at the point for our last poll question around booking a one-to-one demo. If you liked what you saw, if you want to go deeper into your own workflows and your own models, projects, get more specific questions answered, go ahead and answer this. I'll reach out and we'll set up a one-to-one demo. Great. So there were a number of questions, Ward, coming in while you were showing that. So let me see if I can group a couple of these. There were a couple of questions around how to create rules, whether they are custom rules, can they be preset and saved? And then tied to that was, how do you set up a clash check rule?
Yes. So rules are quite generic. This is the first thing. And also they can be like customized. So you can add your own requirements to them based on the check that you're using, if it's a clash, property, or free space. And then you can save it on your project. And all the project members will be able to collaborate over there. And then they can check the models based on these checks. In our roadmap for this year, we're going to have also more features to enhance overall collaboration. For instance, sharing these checks along with their filters, of course, with other projects, which will enhance like the overall collaboration in the projects.
Great. There was another question around, so we focused today on Revit files, but how would the workflow be different, or would it be different with IFC files?
So it's pretty much the same. Nothing will change. It's just the properties that you will select to create your filters or rules would be slightly different. For instance, over here, I've used for Revit files the Revit category property, but in IFC, we have more attributes, more properties that we can use. So we can use, for instance, IFC entity or any other classification that we have over there. But like generally speaking, the workflow will be pretty much the same.
Okay. Tiro has a question about setting tolerances for clash checks. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, so actually like it's the third requirement in the clash check on Solibri CheckPoint. So first we have the base target, which are the base elements, and then we have the colliding target. And the third requirement, which of course you need to specify before running any clash check, which is tolerance. And of course we have different units of measurements that we can have on checkpoints. So if you're working with metric or imperial, then the tolerance unit will also change over there.
Okay. Chris is asking about DWG files and support for DWG.
So DWG files, this is actually a very good question. We've seen that a lot. Currently, the file formats that we support are IFC and Revit, but DWG, this is still in our roadmap. We still need to do more investigations because with DWG files, you're not working with the exact elements just like IFC or Revit. We need to read the meshes and all of that, but this is something that we have in the roadmap.
Okay, there's a question about scaling this to more complex rules such as escape route analysis.
Indeed, this is also like another good question. We have it also on the roadmap. We have the escape routes. This is one, and we have also the duplicate checks. There are different checks that are in the pipeline, but the three ones that we've recently introduced are more generic to try to include most of the checks that any BIM professional would face during their QA QC for their BIM models. But the rest of the checks will definitely be there, and the fire escape is one of them.
Okay, and then there's a question about integration with ArchiCAD BIM Cloud.
So regarding the integrations with ArchiCAD and BIM Cloud, like all of these integrations are still in the roadmap. We have a solid layer of integrations which allows us to basically integrate with other platforms. But like ArchiCAD BIM Cloud, this is one of the integrations that we're going to have in the future.
Okay. All right, well, we are right at about 31 minutes. So as we said, we're going to keep this short. Thank you for all the questions. If you do want to take advantage of the 2-week trial, we dropped the email address in the chat again, so you can email us there. The meeting has been recorded. We will share out a link to the recording. It'll also be on our YouTube channel. And again, thank you everyone for attending today and taking a look at Solibri CheckPoint.